The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
How's it been? How you guys doing?
What's up, dude?
What did you do this week? Gunwoo's doing the miming real quick because he doesn't have them sound.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds cool, Gunwoo. I like that idea.
I do like it too. It's cute.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, yesterday.
Headphones are off.
It's all right.
I got a quick question before we start.
Yeah.
I was watching the intro and like paying close attention, and then I saw that octopus.
Oh, yeah.
Is there like a meaning behind that, or are you just like, oh, I think this is a good spot for an octopus?
That's a great way to start the thing. So I had a conversation. I was thinking about, when I think of the octopus, I think of Cthulhu, and the Cthulhu thing is like H.P. Lovecraft monster. You know about H.P. Lovecraft and Cthulhu, right? Let me see if I.
Yeah, I've never read the books, but I've heard a lot about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's something that permeates our culture because there's something kind of real, regardless. I mean, even though he's taken something that's a Halloween kind of supernatural thing, in that way, it allows it to be your own fright. And so your own fright's more real. But we always think of it as an octopus because it's like a cute, cuddly version of Cthulhu. Cthulhu is really like this darkness, right? It's just like horrible darkness, right? But part of darkness is it's like saying it's matter, it's a material, it's dark matter, you know? And so when I think of a lot of religious people, you know, and people that have like faith, and before this month or, you know, like all my life, I'll think of atheists. I think atheists are the most faith-bound religion there is, honestly. I always have, because I've always been jealous of atheists.
I'm just laughing more at Gunwoo eating. I don't know why that made me laugh.
It is adorable, isn't he? He's like,
we're talking.
Are you eating people? Okay.
No, eating pasta.
No, not eating people. Okay. All right.
So you didn't do that just to cover up, like maybe the background stuff was borrowed from somebody else, and you had to transform it. That was the other thought maybe going on in my head.
You can, I mean, once it becomes fair use, you like once I've got my face on something, but I think
I think there's a little more to it than that. When it comes to fair use,
if you transform something to the point that it's like a new thing that
that's what I was saying.
Without itself,
like if you add some art to an art, then you know with fair use, it always depends on if the original creator of the material you're using has a problem or not.
Well, my friend actually
take you to court for anything.
My friend illustrated and animated the octopus, so like that's our own octopus. You know what I mean?
No, I was talking about like the psychedelic effects in the background. I had a little bit of lettuce, so like it's been a while since I've had any lettuce.
I did make a bunch of the psychedelic effects in the background too. And some of those are also, so like some of the hand illustration stuff is also
cool.
done.
This is pretty cool. I like it. I watched it in a different mindset, so I was like paying more attention to like little details.
What is the initiation, entered apprentice? Yeah, I think that the reason the octopus matters to me is the Boy Scouts, because like if you remember, were you in the Boy Scouts? Did you guys ever do that?
No.
So in the Boy Scouts, you have to believe in something. This is like the unsaid rule. It's like in order to be a Boy Scout, you have to believe in something. It's like
that's very Masonic.
It is very Masonic. It's more than Masonic. It's Jungian or Rosicrucian. It's esoteric because you don't have to believe in God. Now, this is really confusing because a lot of Mormons are Boy Scouts, a lot of Catholics are Boy Scouts, a lot of Protestants are Boy Scouts, and they're saying you got to believe in God to be a Mormon. That's not true. And a lot of Mormons had atheists in their groups because Mormons were just really good at getting merit badges. You just join their group. So they say, you don't have to believe in our stuff. You just say, when it comes to that point of the form, because to get an Eagle Scout badge, you literally got to say what you believe, because you have to believe something. So you say, I believe in the flying spaghetti monster, right? So, and have you not heard this before? Because like,
no, not at all.
This is crazy to me not to know this.
This is what goes on in the Boy Scouts? Is that what we're talking about?
This is what goes on in the Boy Scouts. I don't know if it still does, because by the way, the Boy Scouts, like, they raped a bunch of kids, they went trans, and then they sold all the greatest parks. Like my park, Pico Blanco, that was like our like nature park that's been there for 100 and some odd years. They sold it to some weird group because the Boy Scouts is falling apart. So I don't know what they're doing now. But at my lifetime and everyone's lifetime up before me, you had to believe in something. And I think in the 60s, right, they started introducing the flying spaghetti monster. You can say, well, don't worry, you just believe in the flying spaghetti monster. And you're like, what does that mean? Right? So either you're saying a lie, you know, like you believe in this thing you don't believe in, or the flying spaghetti monster is a reduction. It's a simplified term, right? And in the 60s, we started introducing, like, why would someone believe this? Well, because they don't believe in the traditional empirical narrative. They believe in modern science. They believe in contemporaneous empiricism from the 60s. So they believe in what? Metaphysics, quantum physics, quantum what? String theory, right? So quantum string theory emerges, and all of a sudden we hear about the flying spaghetti monster. So I think this is pretty like fair that they were trying to get kids who believed in science to say what they believed in and to personify it into such a way that they'd be acceptable to be Boy Scouts.
So you couldn't just say whatever it is. Like I say, if I was like, I believe in the power of love, like they wouldn't accept that.
Not at the immediate time, I think. I mean,
it has to be this flying spaghetti. Because like that reminds me of like 12-step programs where they tell you to believe in anything. Like you just pick your thing your higher power. It sounds like that.
It does.
I get that. That does change your mindset about life when it's not just all about you, you know?
St. Thomas Germain said, you know, it doesn't matter if you like God, but you're going to have to accept that there is a higher power if you're going to want to do alchemy, if you're going to want to perform magic, all these things. And I think that's the thing that keeps coming up is like even the devils and demons or whatever, they believe in energy, you know, it's just what they do with it probably.
Okay, dokie.
Yeah. Oh, so speaking of which, the Kakori Krishitans, I was wondering that. So what do you, I know you stay up late, like thinking about the Kakori Krishitans, Pink Trip. I know that's like,
I think I heard that they used to do like a lot of psychedelics and then like stuff large objects up their ass for like,
I think that might have
thought.
I think that was right before and after. So that's not the Kakori Krishitans, that's the Kabuki groups. No, but that's close. So in a weird way, you're onto something. So like what happened was in the third century, Christianity started to like spread out like really far. And by the 15th century or whatever, because we're talking flamenco, who knows what's true. But the way we look at history, by the point that the Edo period's about to start in Japan, about a third of Japan, maybe more, is Catholic. Did you know that? Did you know that like that was that Catholic?
I know there are Catholic. I didn't know it was that much.
It was super Catholic, actually. Yeah. There's a book about it from Endo called Silence, and Scorsese ended up making a movie about it.
Because I saw the movie, but
he had the same problem I did when he read that book. Like when I read that book, I used to wake up in the middle of the night having night terrors at like 3 a.m. And my girlfriend was like, "Dude, what is wrong with you? The Japanese Christians died 300 years ago. Shut up." And she was a Satanist, which made it all the worse. But yeah,
how's the sex with Satanists? It's got to be good.
It's ideal, but
so, yeah.
I would think that's like the one good thing about being with a Satanist.
You'd be surprised; they're actually pretty decent people a lot of the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, man. They're like a lot less hypocritical than other people. There's a lot of problems with the Satanists. I wouldn't recommend it overall.
Yeah, modern like LaVeyan Satanists are just like fucking just agnostics, just disguised as like some edgy fucking religion. Yeah, it's a counterculture, really. As a
I've seen all that. I've seen all that.
Yes, yeah.
It's still just, you know, it's
kind of Reddit religion, pretty much.
The Satanists you meet in psychology
class.
It's
cringe. It's cringe. We'll call it cringe.
Like they identify as Satanists not because they believe in Satan, but like it's just as a reactionary counterculture.
But like how different exactly? Because how different is that than anything we're a part of? So many things are politically or ideologically inversion theory. We're like, well, whatever the government says, that's got to be evil. What do we believe? A lot of the time that people believe, that they're like that the people who run the world are, you know, Satanists and pedophiles. Like they turn it around, right? That it's them that's. So it's like, I feel like we're the same thing. And that's what a Satanist originally believed. Satanists originally believed that Latin was backwards from Etruscan, that the languages and the rituals were inverted, that the only thing you could do to restore it was to pray backwards. Because then
if I was a Satan worshiper who was murdering people to Satan every night, I'd probably have that as my backstory as well.
Yeah,
we don't really believe in Satan. That's all.
But here's
go hide the sacrifice.
I totally agree with you, and that's what scares me about the Catholic Church. Right?
Do you ever hear about that?
The Catholic Church is saying that they're good people, that they're not Satanists, and then for 1,000 years they kill people. They had crusades. They literally drank blood. There were bone churches, right? So like it's kind of interesting because your logic is correct here. Like when someone says they're the good guy, it might mean they're not, right?
Right. Opus Dei specifically, like a huge rabbit hole there. Especially the stuff about the Black Pope and the Jesuits and whatnot.
Did we talk about the SSPX? Oh yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, I was going to mention like how essentially Protestantism is essentially the same idea of being in the reactionary counterculture to Catholicism, right? Because they were founded under
Jesus, Andreas, mute your fucking mic first. Now it makes it even worse. Are you smoking crack? Are you smoking meth? We don't know, dude. We don't know what wild shit you're up to. We just know it sounds like you're up to some wild ass shit back there, dude.
There's a salmon, and I'm torching it right now for information.
Okay, yeah, that's what it is.
But yeah, you know how like I was mentioning this to the people, like how like Protestantism is essentially disguised German idealism, right? So the switch between so initially the Old Testament guide is impersonal, right? That's what Catholics believe in. It still is an impersonal God. You have to go through religious like channels to reach him directly or whatever. Whereas Protestantism has become the switch to the personal God, that God kind of catered towards you, comes with this idea of German individualism and Martin Luther and whatnot. The humanist Enlightenment movement was around the same era as well. So, yeah, a lot of people don't put the two and two together, but yeah.
Yeah, the Second Awakening thing in the United States is interesting because you've got in Europe, you've got people being killed for believing stuff, right? And so the earliest Christians are all killed. All the earliest Christians, all the saints, all the people, whatever they really believed is gone. All their books are burnt, right? And you have Pauline Christians, militant Christians. You have like cannibals that take over the church for a while. And then you've got, the
Amalekites.
Yeah, and then you have a Reformation period. But the Reformation period it's like the First Awakening. People are like, we should really be reading this stuff. Second Awakening is interesting because in the United States, you've got no one telling you can't or must.
Right.
And you've got random people just saying anything, and they're not doing it in fear of being killed. They're doing it in search of attention. So the American religions are...
Well, yeah, that's honestly a search for attention, right? People forget to draw the connection that majority of white Americans come from the Salzburg German root, right? So like these are Enlightenment humanist Germans that were escaping persecution that went into America to find like Mennonite groups or Amish, whatever, stuff like that, Quakers and whatnot. So yeah, it all has like a root in some legitimacy. It's not really they were looking for attention. It's just they were more so like their whole doctrine was the whole end time stuff, like Book of Revelations type shit.
Yeah, but that's 16. That's like 16th to 17th century. I'm telling like 1820s on. So like the Second Awakening period is when you got Shakers, Quakers, Mormons, Jehovah's Witness emerge eventually out of this. Like it's groups of people that are like, no one's gonna kill us for saying this. How much can we say? And they're saying so much. And
the Seance sisters and whatnot,
right? Like seances. Like there would not be okay in the 16th century for common folk to do seances. Only royals, maybe. But by the 19th century, seances are like a meeting, like a TV in the middle of the living room. Everyone's doing seances all the time. So America opens the door for anybody to do anything. In a lot of ways, I think we don't understand how, because it's so we're not in America anymore. We're not in a place where you can just the kind of freedom that they had for a moment there is kind of gone.
That's all Salzburg German attitudes. The like I said, the humanist Enlightenment stuff of the liberation, the whatever. But yeah, back to Kakuri Christians. A lot of people attribute the Christian introduction to Japan as being from Francis. Was it Saint Francis, the Spanish, or no, Francis Xavier?
Yeah, Xavier. Yeah, I was like, not Sir Francis Bacon.
No. So yeah, everybody like
Ignatius.
Everybody attributes the introduction of Christianity to that guy, saying, "Oh, Catholicism came from him, whatever." But it doesn't explain how widespread Christianity was in Japan. Much like how Korea was, North Korea was called Jerusalem of the East at one point. How
did they become Catholic? Was it the Spanish? Did they send a bunch of missionaries?
The Nestorian Christians. It was Nestorian Christian contact that went through Korea down to Japan.
What is a Nestorian Christian? Or what is I don't. You got to. I'm good for the people in the audience who are morons like me. Like we got to break it down because you lose me.
Right.
Nestorian. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Maybe you can explain it because I'm pretty sure you know more about this than me. Like, I'm from my understanding, they're just like a Syriac sect of Christians.
Yeah, well, Nestorius was like a you could call him a heretic by some accounts, or you could say he was, trying to establish something separate from the Nicene Creed, and they moved east because they weren't accepted in the West, essentially.
Right, they're considered heretics because they denounced the Council of Nicaea because they saw through the psyop how Constantine fucking usurped Christianity through his own. You guys
just like read all night long or watch documentaries, or like when you're not like, is it like a 14-hour a day thing?
I think
how the fuck do y'all know all this shit?
I think part of it's also like if you're a heretic, you want to know more about heretics. You know what I mean?
It's not high functioning autism, my guy. Fucking.
Okay, well, I mean, at least now I can understand a little more.
Right. No, it's just I don't know.
Autistic power is like extreme, dude.
Well, okay,
extreme shit.
The reason it matters is because again, you've got a group of Christians, like a third. Like, okay, Japan had a genocide. They killed as many of the Christians as they could. We're talking like a third of Japan got killed. Hundreds of thousands of people went into hiding and hid Christianity for how long? Till now. Like we've got Kakuri Kurishitans living in Okinawa that still have Mary hidden on Siddhartha, that still have crucifixes that are hidden on the backs of these statues of Buddha, that have mandalas that if you shift become crucifixes. They have Eucharist ceremonies, which is really where this is going to go in a second. But yeah, keep going, Gunwoo. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. So so
Nestorians went to Japan way before the Jesuits,
right,
way
and then
before the Catholics took it
like
over.
I've talked to other established historians about this. They completely deny any legacy of Nestorianism in East Asia. They completely deny this. Meanwhile, we have fucking artifacts in Mongolia of Nestorian Christian, crucifixes all like everywhere.
The Japanese have a site they believe Jesus went to Japan.
Yeah,
They have a
Shingo,
great-
Japan, that too, and also the how David Ewing mentions Isashi, Musashi. We know that already. But just like there's a
Isao,
lot of
when he says that Isao is in the Bible, and there's a place in Japan called Isaoshi,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
Musashi is related to
Well,
Muhammad.
no, Isa. That's the whole Isa.
Isao's Jesus.
Yeah, fucking entomology debate. But
Here's the spot in Japan where they think Jesus
but
is
yeah,
married.
I was looking into this, which caught my attention. Because you know how so the whole there's a plaque in Shingo, Japan, next to that burial site that says that Jesus used a body double, and yeah, his brother was crucified, and then how
Right.
Jesus went to Japan, and then that's he died at the age of 106. A
Right.
lot of Christians.
Wasn't
don't
there a
accept-
story of him going to like Ireland too, or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
but hold
there's
on.
all, like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
before we
and
get off
Mary
track here.
Magdalene and him go first to Milan, or they go to Italy first,
Right,
and
right,
through
right.
Italy they go
Yeah.
north. Is the story? Yeah.
Before we get off track here, I wanted to
Yeah.
get this point over
Yeah.
with. But yeah, but the thing that caught my attention was right. So like the specifically the part that says that Jesus used a body double. They're not Muslims, and Japanese are Shinto, Confucianist based, right? Culture. They have no connection to Islam really, like on a surface level. So the fact that they mention the fact that Jesus used a body double is very interesting because that's what Muslims also believe in, and the whole Aryanism stuff, right? And it's
Not Aryan like the Aryans, but Arianism,
right,
the
right.
philosopher. There was a civil war amongst Catholics with this believer, this preacher, this priest, Arian, Arion, and he believed that the Trinity was wrong, that Christ was in two, that there was two.
That Christ was just a prophet or something like
Well,
this.
basically, like you have people that believe that God was this angry, jealous God. That was the way that it was taught, and all of a sudden Jesus is talking about this loving God, and they're like, "Well, this must be a different God, then, right?" And so Arian was saying that there's two God,
Right, but stuff like that. Whether like the son of God was actually a title, because as we see, like Lazarus was also called the son of God, and multiple people throughout the Bible and the Quran are mentioned to be sons of God, right? And so under that logic, that Jesus was just a prophet, which is very interesting because the fact that these people in Shingo, Japan, corroborate this idea that Muslims have been preaching about that Jesus used a body double. I mean, I lean more towards like Christianity, so like, I have a hard time accepting this myself. But it's also very interesting to like point out that this information exists, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
if
like
you
a
could turn-
historical thing.
If you could turn water into wine, you could probably just clone your own body double.
Well, so
You know what I mean?
That's-
Like it's probably a miracle you could pull
Right.
off when you're walking on water and raising the dead.
yeah, if you're Chad like Jesus, you can do cool
Yeah.
stuff. I posted this in the sound. This was heresy that was settled. This was settled centuries ago, but sounds like heresy that was settled centuries ago or not. But it was like true or false. Eucharist and other endowments of power can be bestowed directly from God, not only from men through men of the priesthood. This is key because the Catholic Church is like, dude, you got to be a Catholic. You got to have your hands blessed by another hands. Like it's got to be a priest that does it. And, they really, this was a way more contentious question than I think I really even realized. And so people were like, are you seriously doing this? This is irreverent and disrespectful to even ask this kind of question, to post this. And eventually, like someone says catechism explains this pretty well. I'm like, actually, it doesn't. Then I bring up the Kakuri Kurishitans. And I'm like, okay, like think about the Kakuri Kurishitans, because you had Jesuits, they came there. You had Catholics, we didn't even bring up before that. And we know in the old church, you didn't have to do, it wasn't licensing. It wasn't like a driver's license. You have the right to be performing like magic or something like that through this church. That's something in the 11th or 12th century that the Catholic Church literally makes up, and they have false documents like the Promise of Constantine, or all these things, all forged documents. So there's none of that's original. Like the original way the church worked. If you read the Didache, you can do the endowment, you can do the Eucharist. So the Catholic Church is saying then you've got these group of Catholics that have been spending these are Japanese Catholics. They're probably even following the rules better than you. You know what I mean? And because they're oppressed about it, when you're oppressed about something, it makes you a bit more defiant. You know what I mean? So you got people that are practicing the Eucharist and the blessings and sacraments and baptisms and forgiveness of sins, right? Because the Catholics have this thing, you have to be forgiven of sins. They're practicing all that without priests, technically, because they don't have oversight by the Holy Papacy. So are you saying that these Catholics, right, are imposters? And that they're going to hell, that they were baptized, believed in Jesus, did all the prayers. And how well did they do these prayers? We have video recordings of them in 2008 showing that they're still doing them perfectly. And they're doing them in Portuguese, Latin, because they've memorized them phonetically like a mantra. And they have sake and rice balls for their Eucharist because they didn't have wheat. But they're doing it, and it's like, so it's up to you. Like, did those people go to hell or not? I'm pretty convinced that they did not go to hell for practicing the exact thing that they were supposed to practice.
So
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. For me, following the timeline of the Nestorian contact and whatever, I'm under the impression that the majority of the Christians in Japan were originally Nestorian, but as soon as the Catholics and the Jesuits came over, this genocide of Christians was intentionally orchestrated by them to, cover that up and weed out and convert the Nestorians into Catholicism for whatever Masonic agenda.
Let's move on to that forward. But King, what was your feeling? You had feelings there. Your thoughts?
Well, no, the Son of God, like that term, like if you think about it, like we call God the Father.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't all of humanity the sons and daughters of God? So
pretty much.
How special is like that term? And then I think there's even some teachings in the Bible that I think even Jesus said, like, anybody can do what he did. Like, basically, so, I don't know.
That's the idea that a lot of Muslims accept, right? So yeah,
well, that's what makes sense on the surface.
He said he was the Son of Man.
He said he was son of. He didn't say Son of God. He said Son of Man.
Well, I'm not saying he didn't say.
I think he said both, right?
But yeah, I don't remember. But I know he said Son of Man. I know people call him something. I know he called himself the Son of Man.
We can't really rely too much on the translations of the Bible due to the Masoretic interpretations.
Yeah, but the Son of Man is interesting because if you read the Greek translation of the P95, which is like the earliest version of John we have from the late first century or early second century, the version of John that we have is from the 5th, 6th century. So having an older version is cool. It corroborates in Greek these ideas that the Son of Man represents kind of this the culmination, like the next son, like the next man in a sense. So it's
you look at it just from the surface, technically, yeah, he was the son of a man.
No. So it's like they're saying he's the Son of God, but he's like, yeah, but I'm also like the next form of man. Like this is the way, like it's really about Christ consciousness, critical mass of people being like Christ. And if more people start acting that way, like then the world's a better place. I think it's as simple as that.
Well, he did get a lot of crap from the Jews because he was breaking all the laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sadducee. Well, again, he got in trouble with anybody who had laws, like the Romans as well, Inside of Ages says, that is the same kombucha I was making.
What?
All right. I don't know.
He cured a paralyzed guy on the Sabbath, and they were all angry at him about it. Like, how dare you?
Oh,
how dare you? Yeah, so there's a lot of crazy Jewish laws at that time.
Well, yeah, so
still exist.
That's an interesting,
not crazy. I mean, sorry.
Well, that's the thing that makes why it's weird that Christianity went through this phase of being, God is evil, and so now there's this God's angry and jealous. Now God is loving. So is it that God is a different God? Is it that God is reflective and has changed because God used to be angry and jealous, and now God's full of love?
I think if God is real, it's like 2% of the teachings are probably inspired by like a real revelation from God, where the other 98% are like a government just writing laws and saying, this is God said this.
Right? Yeah. So it seems like you've got man's law writing God's law, right? Natural law. Man trying to rewrite natural law. And so the
Yeah.
oldest version, it's either that God is like this and has changed, or Occam's razor is that man was wrong. Man's perspective, like in and of itself, missed and misinterpreted this thing.
Well,
And there's
power structures use the idea of God to get people to listen to them.
But this Yeshua character is coming around saying, really, if you just do these things, consequentialism is that like the action will lead to this result. If you do this evil, evil leads to evil. If you do good, good leads to good. It's a natural consequence. I can't punish you. You're punishing yourself, right? It's
Yeah.
a different way of everything. And
Yeah.
it's the war against Abrahamic
You got a
philosophy.
super chat, by the way.
Another? Oh, no, it's
Did
the
you
same.
get to? Oh,
Oh
I
no,
didn't know you
the
pulled
same
it.
kombucha I made when I was at SpaceX. Oh,
sorry.
Inside Space Ages. Oh, you made some gnarly kombucha that made him. He had like a psychedelic kombucha awakening. I
The
forget what
devil's
he used.
lettuce, man. It's messing me up, dude.
Should be careful with kombucha. I remember what I did to Lindsay Lohan. But yeah, Inside the Ages, we should talk again. Hit me up on the Discord. I don't know. I mean, I find that interesting though, just this idea of like transubstantiation or magic or rituals or whatever, because if this idea is like, so how much what do we want to hold true, right? Because you got a group of people, they're doing forgiveness of sins. Does it count or not? Like, what do you believe about all that? Like this idea that, do you believe you have to atone in order to ascend or whatever? Or what is like, how important is all this? Because some people are like, you just accept Jesus and you can just you're all right,
Right. The complete neglect of church history, but yeah. So the forgiveness aspect of things, right? So if Jesus really did use a body double and ended up being buried in Japan, that means this whole atonement for sin shit is a Catholic lie, and it's purely based on indulgences. And then you have the Agori people in India, or like people that like kind of, and also the fucking, what was that Russian sect that Rasputin was part of. Anyways, they don't believe that like there's sin doesn't really exist. That you must the Khyllists. That's what they were called. The Khyllist.
KHYLST. Oh yeah.
The Cliffs, yeah, those guys. So that them and the Agori Indians have like a very similar doctrine, right? It's just very interesting because they're geographically miles apart, right? This idea that like either you become closer to God in your atonement, or there is no such thing as sin at all. You must embrace everything due to that one verse in Genesis that everything that He created was good. There is no good and evil, and then our own idealism and ego of eating from the fruit of knowledge, good and evil, is the reason why we have this separation. Stuff like that. It's this borders on like Gnostic territory, so it's just like, man, it's too schizo for me. But yeah, it's very interesting and stuff like that. If we explore down more of this avenue, that we could be closer to the truth, if anything, especially considering the idea that like that people in Shingo, Japan, corroborate this idea that Jesus used a body double, and if that really is true, then this whole atonement shit is bullshit.
Well, like, can't we just use natural law? Like, can't you just like do a Hegelian exercise? So you're like, let's say you've got a person and you got two persons. One person believes that they can follow this NIV commandment and it says one thing and they'll be fine. The other person says, I have to align myself and commit actions that are good and cease actions that are bad, right? Which is a separate idea. So one is like atonement, but that person then says, okay, I'm good, right? So then they can go on and they can continue to sin, continue to like be rapists, murderers, pedophiles, drink blood, whatever, and ask for forgiveness. And consequentially, they're fine in this spiritual realm, right? When they're dead, supposedly, but immediately the world is made worse. More people are made traumatized. More issues happen, and natural law still still wins, right? So then you go to natural law, and you got a person who's like, I don't even know. I could be agnostic, but I'm pretty sure I have to respect people, I'm pretty sure I have to act out of love and, you know, compassion instead of trying to like control people and manipulate people, you know, these like kinds of natural laws. And when they follow those rules, the consequences show them, yeah, you're rewarded from doing that. The universe breaks apart more and shatters more the more selfish you get. So natural law seems to then train people that even if they've never talked to God, right? Then they're aware of the way to serve the universe and God and whatever that is, right?
Or you believe in karma in some way. Don't like a lot of cultures believe in some form of karma, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think karma is like the universal that, but in a lot of ways, karma is the thing that is trying to be avoided by modern religion, because you're like, well, you don't have to worry about karma because you're saved, because the church is here, because you can pay for indulgences, right?
That's a good recruitment tool. You know, it's like, oh, you don't gotta do shit. You just walk in here, spend an hour, you know, let me go boo 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 around your head, and all your shit's gone. You're going to heaven.
The Eastern understanding of like this the social balance stuff is is what we call karma, right? But like where Europeans more so diverge into this social contract stuff with like, you know, enlightenmentism and whatever. That's another whole area of philosophy and like a rabbit hole that I don't want to get into right now. But
you were trying to go on the Nestorians and I cut you off.
Yeah. So
oh wait, can I say one thing? You said Jesus had a body double. Like back then, like we didn't have like photos and shit to know what people look like. So you could easily get your friend and go, okay, you're gonna go to this part of the country, say you're Jesus. I'll go to this part of the. So you could have more than one Jesus, and people really wouldn't know.
Life of Brian. I think the thing also is a lot of these people are related, right? You have a smaller community of people that have bigger families, and so Yeshua is related. He's like cousins with John the Baptist. At least James is supposed to be his brother, right? Which is Santiago in Spain. They say that was where James went instead, if he survived, because there's two brothers. And then there's also, who else is related? Oh, Mary Magdalene, wife of Christ, probably, but also probably cousin of Christ, right? Because usually you married your first cousin at that time in that place. So I mean,
the thing is,
but that's a royal family, like,
right? But we also have to consider the flamenco compartmentalization. So like, you know how you have like Charlemagne, Solomon, Suleiman, stuff like that, right? If Jesus if this millennial kingdom called Tartaria really did exist for 1,000 years and Jesus ruled over it, then we would have so many different names for this one guy. Which makes complete sense to me. Like, so there's people out there that believe that like Jesus Christ was actually Julius Caesar's Rex. There's that rabbit hole too.
This guy says in the comments, he says, what if something could soften the blow of karma? That's interesting. Like, say you murder somebody, but then you save like the lives of like 5 different people. Does that give you positive karma? Because it's like 5 lives saved versus 1 person murdered.
I think the Veda would. Well, it depends.
No, I think the Kabbalah would answer this, because like they're all about manufactured consent and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, well, because obviously with the Veda it would be like because of reincarnation. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, or is it the Ramayana? I think it's the Bhagavad Gita. They're explaining why, so like a warrior is praying to Krishna, or is it to Vishnu? I think he's praying to Krishna, saying like, please don't make me kill all these people, because like I'm gonna have to go to war against like some of my favorite teachers and friends and brothers. And then they're like, it doesn't matter, it's horrible, yes, but it has to be done because you have to defeat the material evil, because their spirit will be reincarnated and they'll forget the evil. So the Veda looks at it in reincarnation, whereas I think in the Kabbalah, like you'd have to think about consent and social contract, but that's even more of a European, like,
right.
Yeah, I think with Jewish law, it's like it's just straight up God is angry and jealous, and you have to do what he said. It's not really like but like part of that is because then you understand why, you know, because it's one of those things where you're like, I hate my father, he's such a jerk, and then you become him. So like they're by 40, you're a dad in Kabbalah, you know, like you're by 43 or whatever, when you're getting to the age to study the Kabbalah, your kids are already annoying you, you know, you're already like, I can see why God would smite us, like look what I would totally smite my son, you know. That starts happening, and you know, then they start studying like the idea of like, you are all these things, like you are, I'm angry sometimes, but I'm also compassionate, but I can hold on to understanding. And I think that's like, it's the multifaceted view. There's some benefit to that, because in Kabbalah you're living as a slave, and you have to accept that. Like, you're living in a world that's like a prison state, right? And like, I think we need to, that's the thing that's missing in a lot of religions. A lot of religions, like, oh, it's actually so great, and if you drink butter,
Right,
you'll
that's
be
where the
happy.
German idealism comes in. That's the whole like humanist stuff. Like, oh, you know, we're images of God. You know, we should be like, you know, we're all kings in our own right, stuff like that. Whereas traditionally, it was all about submitting yourself, denying your ego, so becoming a literal servant or slave to God, right? Because we said, yeah, the modern religious movements these days, they completely lost our reverence. And the fear of God aspect, right? It's all about love. It's all about forgiveness, right? Whereas back then, traditionally, it was all about submission. Oh fuck, where was I going with this?
Andreas, you screwed him up with your crack smoking breaks.
What can I say?
Go ahead, we'll give you time, Gunwoo. Everybody.
But
Go
yeah, fuck. But yeah, no, just let's move on. Like I woke up like 30 minutes ago. My brain's scattered.
Yeah, man.
Well,
Night owls, dude.
I mean, I think that the issue with the Kokori Christians is like you model something. It's kind of like Mormonism is another example like that to me, or it's like the Book of Mormon musical or something. Like here's here's a cargo cult, right? Here's a group of people that believed in something like supernatural. They believe that this group of white people, you know, were like magical, essentially. And they did. They believe that the Jesuits who came here, and because the Jesuits also could impress them with science, show them like astrology, astronomy. They knew a lot of useful things. So then they're gone, right? When they're gone, and you're oppressed, and again, like the way they killed these Christians, because a lot of these these Catholic Japanese were crucified like Jesus, you know what I mean? So they were crucified at sea, they were drowned on crucifixes, they were crucified upside down, they were like the work, like creative torture. I don't know if you've seen anime, but they took it to new levels. And so the Japanese Christians, like they became more like Christ than a lot of people. I mean, a lot of these literally crucified, right? And they follow these rules. You know, they're vegetarians, they're like sharing everything. And yeah, so then they're believing in this thing that's no longer there, so it becomes supernatural. Like, oh, these popes, these priests, and everything like that.
That's interesting because if you think about it, like any culture that's well ahead technology wise of another culture can almost trick that culture into thinking there's some sort of supernatural being. Because that also reminds me, like I was pulling up this quote Arthur C. Clarke said, right? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, right?
Right. Totally.
So maybe that's a lot of the history of religion is just one culture from another part of the country meets up with another culture and they're so far ahead. You know, maybe you just see them going by in their boat or some shit, you know, and you're like, whoa, they can make fire.
So Sanskrit coming from Persia, you know, like the entire, what do the Hindus believe about Sanskrit? It's the language of the gods, right? But it comes from another place, so it's easier to believe. You know,
it's also the connection with Quetzalcoatl. So before mainstream academia completely psyoped the idea of Quetzalcoatl being some eagle fucking god, initially the motifs were was this white bearded man that came. This is Noah Ark story, right? This white bearded man came over to South America, taught them the tools of civilization stuff. Yeah. So if you look at if you Google a Quetzalcoatl statue, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, didn't when Cortez arrived, like there was like
they
on time for like some prophecy or something.
Gods, because you know he was supposed to be a white bearded man, right? This idea that's it's either Moses or whatever.
Yeah, and then they got all this crazy because he's like riding on a horse and they never seen that before.
Yeah.
Half horse, half man.
Yeah, this entire reset civilization that we live in, this post-Phoenix event civilization that we are in, definitely in the entirety is all like a cargo civilization. Especially if you subscribe to the idea that all these 18th century, this 19th century technology was reintroduced to us through industrialization. So yeah, I completely buy into this whole cargo cult idea, but it's just our own ego sees this as, oh, it's our own hard work and might that is what achieved our greatness. Whereas instead of completely neglecting passagery, and maybe this is why, you know, groups like the Masons, whatever, are trying to usurp history in order to keep up the status quo that we believe in.
Well, think about how crazy, like, okay, so for a second, contemplate the Christ. You got a guy who's a revolutionary, essentially. I mean, they talk about him with a sword, and that he's dividing families. It's not the version that they like to present. And I can see why, because you got a guy who's against the government and the state, and not just his state or the empire, but the whole idea of hierarchy he's like, this is ridiculous. And it's only working through consent. And I think that really, you got decades until the fall of the nation. He's like, dude, this whole country is going to fall apart. We don't even have to do anything. I mean, it's like Osama bin Laden said that, right? He's like, when people asked him what to do, it's like, yeah, don't do anything. Just let them do it to themselves. I mean, that's some scary power, right? And to erase that, you have to erase his life. You have to transplant that character into all of these other myths that exist. Constantine has myths. They have deities. They have ascended masters. They have Julius Caesar. They have kings. And so you have Onomatria. Yeah, it's very easy to see how he was transmuted. But I don't think that's the same as saying there wasn't a Yeshua. There's so many people like, oh, there wasn't a Jesus. Well, okay, yeah, Jesus is like a weird, like, pejorative. I'll give you that. Like, you shouldn't call him Jesus if you wanted to be more accurate, but it is what people are familiar with. When we're talking about this dude who is essentially, he's essentially a revolutionary in a period when the state fell apart, and it led to disorder that spread. It spread through the Roman Empire, spread through Europe. It caused essentially the Crusades and major genocide events to all sorts of people, because they could never, after that, really come up with a full control. And the only way to do it was to usurp Christianity and say, okay, well, but I'm the voice of it. I'm the Pope. I'm God's voice on earth. I'm speaking now. And Jesus, what did he do? He came here to die, right? God made him to die. That's a very specific narrative that I think emerges through the state, right? And it's not the original Yeshua. And so I think it's all the more reason why he's an interesting character, because you've got a freaking revolutionary, essentially.
It was kind of funny to me, like, that his name's Jesus. Are there still any like Jews that have Jesus as a name they use? Because, like, you only see it in, like, Hispanic culture, like Latin America and stuff, like Jesus. It's the only place I ever see
because it is only a Spanish name, like, because his name was Yeshua. It's Joshua, right? Joshua was what his name was, but he went by Yeshua, right? And so we call him Jesus because it's like a Latinization of that,
right? But in the Greek Iosus.
Yeah, but so some people say his name was Yeshua.
If we went back in time and, like, ran into the real Jesus and we called him Jesus, would he even know we were talking about him?
No, it'd be like Alex Jones. He wouldn't even turn around.
Like, what's this? Jesus, what's this?
Everyone keeps confusing me with this Jesus character. I don't know. Yeah, no, that's not. He wouldn't go by that. In fact, I don't know if we called him Yeshua, if he'd know, because I think it might be Esau, Isua or something like that. Because Esau is it's probable that the J is not even pronounced. And, we don't know vowels. You have to buy vowels. So everything we know is, that's the thing. You got a dude. Where's the Coptic Christ picture? Coptic Christ icon.
Man,
he's got dreadlocks.
If Jesus really was Esau, then fuck, man, Christianity's in trouble. Because the whole, if you know about the story of Esau with the Babylonian Talmud, like how Esau sold his birthright to belong to Israel, which is what, So the lineage of Esau, because you know how Jacob's mother essentially kind of disguised Jacob to be like Esau, like all covered him with like hair and whatnot, so that he could trick his dad to give him to give Esau's blessing to Jacob, and then that's how he formed Israel. And Esau, having been betrayed like that through just, I don't know, self-hate or whatever, along down the lines, just stopped giving a shit about this stuff, and then essentially sold his birthright for 30 pieces of silver. And then because of that, he was killed off by Hushim and his children. Vowed vengeance against the tribes of Israel, and that's where this whole contention comes from. Because
maybe that's why Jesus had to be crucified. That was his karma.
Yeah, that was his fucking birthright. That'd be crazy.
He was sold out for what, 30 pieces of gold?
Yeah, because that's where the story and the syncretics match up. The whole 30 pieces of silver thing is like, holy shit.
But also, he took the vow of the Nazarite. Like, he's kind of a hippie. Like, the vow of the Nazarite. It's not just that Jesus was from Nazareth. Like, he went and took the vow of the Nazarite, which is like, you have to stop cutting and washing your hair. You have to become a vegetarian. Of course, like, this is what the modern Nazarite and what the ancient Nazarite, as far as we understand. Ebionite Christians follow that. So Jesus was probably a vegetarian, at least for at least while he was following the Nazarite vow. And yeah, dreadlocks, because the Nazarites wear dreadlocks. So, I mean, so did John the Baptist. So did a lot of the people at that time. So it's a lot different, because you wouldn't have this dude in a Baptist 3-piece suit. However, Jesus does wear a 1-piece, this really nice white single huge garment. And so it is like, he does wear like the nicest thing you can. It's like Prada. Like, he's wearing Prada. It's not the same as other people. A lot of people are wearing like sewn together patch clothing and things like that, and his is just like, a prince essentially. And so that stands out to people, because he doesn't own anything, but he has clean clothes, like really nice clothes.
Yeah, it's honestly so interesting how that motif, like how widespread that is. Like how last stream we were talking about how the Koreans were even wearing all white, and then you had the masjid clothes of the Muslims as well, and like it's everywhere, down to the Mormons even. They fucking wear those like white underwear type things. It's just so interesting. It's like, like stuff like that is what points towards the legitimacy of this character being real. Because like, how else would you explain this, right?
Well, didn't they find his tomb where it was like every family member, there was a spot for it? Like, it wasn't just one Jesus. It was Jesus, and then like all of the family from the Bible all buried in like one little tomb. You know what I'm talking about, right, Andreas?
Jesus tomb. Let me look it up.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but like, how like that's supposedly located in modern day Israel, but we know that modern day Israel is not really Israel. So
yeah, have you heard this? This is interesting. So like the idea that the early Christians believed that Jerusalem was Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem was in Turkey. Was in where the what's that book in the Bible? Colossians. The Colossians is.
Yeah, no, that's just too crazy, dude.
Well,
come on.
Have you read Colossians in the Bible, like the letters to the Colossians? Because there were tons of Christians in the. It's the letter from Paul to Colossians, right? Colossians, you've seen it. Colossians. That's in modern Turkey, and so today we were all confused by this. Like, how could the Turks possibly have Christian? That's where Constantinople was the center of Christianity.
Right.
It was they kicked them out. Like, that's all that happened. They were in charge, and so the Vatican only exists because they had to move out of Turkey. Right? They had to leave Turkey. They changed the name. Istanbul was not Constantinople, or how's that go? Istanbul, not Constantinople,
Yeah.
You know that song? Please, Mark.
Yeah, I do.
Mark doesn't know Istanbul, not Constantinople.
I don't know 90% of the shit y'all talk about, but I try to hang.
What's it called? The Tiny Toons. No, now you're in trouble. Hold on. Where does it go? Yeah. I mean, I can't like make you watch the whole thing so you get in trouble, but like on Tiny Toon Adventures, the Might Be Giants did this great thing. Istanbul. I was just gonna skip Istanbul, not Constantinople. No, it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Been a long time gone. Not Constantinople. How did Constantinople get the works? That's nobody's business but the Turks.
Yeah.
You gotta look at the fezzes.
I didn't watch a lot of cartoons.
Oh man!
This is a separate song. Like the song was like it was made by a band. I forgot.
Might Be Giants. The Might Be Giants. Yeah.
It's
a really important song, and the fact that they made a music video for that is esoteric Bohemian Grove stuff. There's no other way to describe it, really. But yeah, so Turkey was where, and so that not only is that crazy, but it's true that
not only that, it's corroborated by all the Renaissance paintings.
Christianity was in Turkey, but beyond that, Jesus.
Another thing I wanted to point out that nobody else seems to like fucking pay attention to is due to all the all the development project that Erdogan is trying to push, right? Like he's damming up with cement all these ancient fucking villages that has been long since abandoned. Is covering them up with cement to try to wipe this to cover up any evidence of Turkey being originally Jerusalem, which not a lot of people are paying attention to at all.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird tragedy. It's like, why?
So Turkey, so the city of Jerusalem was actually in Turkey, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So where the Bible is based is actually in Turkey. So
not only that, there's Renaissance paintings to corroborate all of this.
The Jerusalem in Israel So what is? I mean, they just
So
named it
so
after.
okay.
The,
So
I
go
mean,
go.
you have two
So
Jerusalems.
so follow me with this, right? You got
No, it's not just.
First off, you got a nation that is a migratory nomadic nation. All right. Second off, Sam the newsman's here, so this is really exciting. How's it going, Sam?
Hey, broadcasting live. How's it going, gentlemen? How are y'all doing?
Pretty excited. You just saved us from a dangerous slope. What have you been looking into this week, man?
Well, listen, I keep hearing the conversation that you're talking about, and I heard somebody I think mention. I hear people say this all the time. They said, "Well, we can't know exactly what Jesus said." Well, I'm gonna give you a little tip. Yes, we can. And you know what? If you pick out the right Bible, his words are in red. They're in red. They're right there. They're in red. They're all right there. It's right in red. Very, very simple to read.
Problem solved.
So, I mean, it's problem solved. It's a purchase problem is what it is. You just got to pick the right translation. I mean, it's very simple. If you didn't pick the one that's in red, well, hey, that's a you problem. Dude. You know, that's a you problem. Well, what do you mean? I can't understand what he said. Well, you didn't get the one. I mean, they're right there.
I'm going to make an Xirtus translation, and it's going to be printed entirely in red. That's how we're doing it.
Well, wait a minute now. Now you're going to upset the apple cart and everything. That's no. Listen, I tell you what, it's very interesting. This whole conversation. It takes me back. I heard a preacher once tell me. He said, "Listen, Sam, I'm gonna give you a secret." He said, I'm going to tell you how you can tell if you've got a good offering. I said, well, what do you mean? And he says, well, here's the trick. You pass the plate around, and then once it gets back to the front, you shake it up. And if you can hear it, and if it jingles, well, it's about time to pass it around again. And you make sure you remind everybody while you pass it around again that, God's not going to double bless you unless you double bless him first. So at least that's what he said. He said after a couple of weeks of that, then you only have to pass it around one time. But, I mean, that gets it going. That's how you know it's a good offering. If it jingles, you got to pass it around again. I said plate, but you know what? You probably should use?
That big wicker basket.
No, well, I was going to say one of those plastic buckets.
Oh, yeah,
from Lowe's, Home Depot.
The wicker basket, though, the wicker basket with the nice cotton on the inside, like you can put so much money in a wicker basket, like a.
No, but I'm shaking it up though. I want to make sure I hear it jingle. If I'm hearing that change jingle at the bottom of that plastic bucket,
go back around.
Pass it around again. What are you doing?
Dude.
What are you doing? Well, listen, gentlemen, I've been looking at a whole bunch of stuff this week, but everything has been negative. It's all negative Nancy all over the place.
True.
And it's very upsetting. Everybody, it is. I mean, listen, that's why I do a show on Saturday mornings where I just play cartoon themes. Very, very great. Every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. on the radio, FM station, 90.1 FM. But I'm sitting there looking at the news. I'm trying to sit there and make sense of all of it, make fun of all of it, troll all of it. And I just can't. I was just like, okay, I got to figure out what am I going to talk about when I show up here. And I saw a no shit article. Say, well, what's that? Well, it's a no shit article because everybody's been saying this for a very long time. Say, well, what's that? Well, you say, well, what is that, Sam? It says music and medicine. Listening to your favorite songs can reduce pain. No shit. I just ridiculous.
How much money did this study cost? Yeah.
Well, it was out of Canada, so it wasn't with my tax dollars,
God,
unless we were just sending them, money like we send everywhere else.
True that.
But so that was it, and it said, hold on, let me see here. It said something interesting here. In our study, we showed that favorite music chosen by study participant has a much larger effect on acute thermal pain reduction than unfamiliar relaxing music. Well, once again, no shit. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, if I'm ever in a bad mood, what the hell do I want to listen to? My favorite song. I want to listen to my favorite song. Rocket science.
So did they do any biopharmacology? Did they figure out like what's going on, or did they just prove that what we know? Is that all it is?
In their experiments, participants felt moderate thermal pain on their inner forearm akin to holding a warm teacup against their skin. This pain was then paired with music segments, each around 7 minutes long, and contrasted with generic music or silence. Participants' favorite tunes substantially diminished both pain intensity and its associated unpleasantness.
Well,
however, unfamiliar, relaxing tracks did not yield the same result. I don't care how damn relaxing it is. Like if I don't know it and I'm in pain, I want to hear my favorite song.
So it's not. So in other words, it's not the music, because if it was just objectively relaxing music, like we have like Beethoven, we learn how to do math music that does that, and it works, that'd be one thing. But we're not saying that. We're saying that familiarity is psychosomatically producing a response that people are reminded of a better time and a better feeling.
But then again, this could also give credence to the idea of cymactic medicine, of sound having healing properties.
It's saying the opposite though, right? Because they're saying it's the familiarity, not the frequencies. It's not the binaural entrainment.
That's bullshit.
Do you think that the music can heal itself? It's actually the music?
No, I think music is a very powerful thing. It has effects on our brain that we probably don't understand. Like if you listen to calming music, there's a reason why music is called calming music, and then there's angry rock music. You know, like music can have different effects on your psyche, how you feel.
I do know a lot of people love death metal and they calm down by listening to it.
Yeah, well, that's probably because they're psychos.
Then you also see all those studies in the videos where it talks and they show where plants, they're subjected to hard rock and roll or dissonant music, dissonance.
True.
That they do not grow. Water vibration does not have the same frequency as opposed to calm music.
And they always said
Beethoven
play Beethoven for like babies and children because they'll have a higher IQ.
Is that Bernie? Right. Bernie, you were supposed to be here, weren't you? Oh God, here, hold on, I'm sending you a link right now.
Bernie Sanders?
No, another one. But yes, I think the thing is that the Hare Krishnas talk about this too. You know, like music can have an effect. There's sounds that have positive experiences. Anthropologists have shown kiki and boba and how people respond. That kiki is this angular shape and boba is a more curved shape. I think there probably is nature to sound. We know this because we look at oscilloscopes and we look at sound waves and how they bend, and there's clearly like we're experiencing that and we intuit that to mean or to feel a way. But I think that's interesting because on one hand what we're saying is that the familiarity is overwhelming the actual sound healing, because if it's climatic sound healing, you shouldn't care, it should just work. But maybe you need the psychosomatic openness to even let it happen or something like that. But
it talks about while the exact nature of musical chills (quotation marks) remains unclear, they appear to trigger a neurophysiological response effect at blocking pain pathways. Some individuals experience these chills as a tingling sensation, shivers, or goosebumps. So there's some kind of neurological something or another going on.
Yeah, so like if I'm listening to music that gives me hope, you know, because I'm thinking about hope or something like that, or it's reminding me of a hopeful time in my life, then it probably makes me a more hopeful person.
Yeah, there's definitely something there. You know, familiarity is nice. You know, it just adds probably more positive feelings around the thing.
I think I agree with Pinkstrip though, because in the long run, if you're listening to music that's familiar, that makes you like, it's death metal that's like telling you to eat babies or something like that. Not that all death metal's like that. I like a lot of death metal, but you know, if you're listening to bad pop music or something, there's probably mind control. Most music's designed to, over a period of time, make you want to go shopping or suicidal. You know.
I mean, we also have the results from the Monroe Institute and like their contributions towards mind control with sound and color specifically. So yeah, a lot of this does have some legitimacy too, a lot of empirical legitimacy. Just like the cognitive dissonance of the West has a hard time accepting this to be a reality. Especially, I would like to. Marketing is huge. They know all about this stuff. Like people, any marketer has to extensively study about these things to actually encapsulate people to buy their products, which is why you have jingles and whatnot.
Well, speaking of marketing, it's been a long time. And the Beatles are set to drop a final single and is remixed from a 1978 Lennon song.
Huh.
So I guess the question is this also goes back into, it says it's a remix of a song. Of course, we're now in the era of AI. What is the popular There I Ruined It TikTok streams I always feed or whatever I see sometimes. So you have a new song coming out by the Beatles. We're talking about music. Would something like this that's been remixed from does it have the same effect as if it was when it would?
If it was written,
brilliant.
If it was written at that time by John, whatever the hell his name. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Vladimir Lenin.
At that time, if it was written at that time, and they're going back now, and Paul and Ringo are like adding their tracks, basically, bass, drums. Yeah, it could actually be a pretty good Beatles song because it's written by John Lennon in 1978. It's just been sitting there. They probably have more too.
I'll go further because of Johnny's comment, Bill Joel, who said all his songs were written in witch speak.
There you go. That's a good one.
Yeah, and you could go further with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, but I think that with the Beatles, like you got Tavistock. It's a Tavistock mind control experiment, right? Like I think the Wings are an even more interesting Tavistock mind control experiment, arguably, but the Beatles are, maybe just if it weren't for the Beatles, you wouldn't have that. So the Beatles are one of the more interesting because they're influencing on all levels. They have surround sound. They're influencing the poor British people. Shake your jewelry, you're rich. Like trying to convince people that they're of the people, and yeah, like product placement. So if you're using somebody like that is familiar, that's an Americanism, by the way. Like because we didn't used to do that. In America, you start having actors endorse movies because you're like, oh, he's in, Bill blah 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 is in this movie. It's going to be a good movie. I've seen him before. And that became a sign of trust. You trust an advocate acting in a movie. Same thing with the voice, right? Like if you see a commercial, you might have some model from the 90s who's selling you a hair conditioner now, because that's the job that she can get. But it's familiarity and trust. So I think that's really what they're doing is like, wow, we can start with this. I don't think that they're necessarily using enough AI in this song because I don't think they all know what to do enough yet. Like I think we're better with AI than they are, still. I mean,
but what's the point of having this boomerang mind control swing back around with these guys and
because it's familiar and people love it. And so once you start introducing the idea of dead bands that they own, first of all, they make tons more money, but also it's a sign of familiarity because you can always, your mind will uncanny valley. You're like, oh, is that person I trust? And I think that's a big part of it. For now, it's just really maybe using an authentic recording that's mixed in different ways, but they're probably adding already to this. And then by next time, we're already hearing songs and people love it. Hearing songs or like Apple's doing Snoop Dogg reading your books, right? Like, cause it's just, you'll listen to your history lecture if Snoop Dogg reads it. You'll listen to Shakespeare if Snoop Dogg reads it. So
and I don't see how you'd have to be a weird person to make that make you actually want to listen to it just because Snoop Dogg reads it.
Everything you say to me is just accusational, Mark.
Then again,
who cares about Snoop Dogg?
The modern obsession.
Martha Stewart loves her. Sorry.
Yeah, people on Twitter are simping towards billionaires that give no fuck about them. It's just weird. This uncanny celebrity worship culture that we have. Yeah. There's a huge market for it.
I pray for Martha and Snoop, and I really hope it works.
He muted himself.
He did mute himself.
Sorry, there's a noise out here. Yeah, I pray for Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart. That's all I was saying. I really hope it works out between them as well.
Okay,
they're romantic. Sorry.
Okay, so this is the last and finally last story here that I have, and then I do have a question that I'll close out. I'll leave you with a nice nugget to kind of develop in relation to what you were talking about prior. Not before you went on all the church stuff, if you will. But we'll save that for another moment. But right now, we need to first talk about. We talked about music. Everybody knows the what is it? Who is the man? That's a bad mother. Shut your mouth.
Shaft.
Isaac Hayes.
Damn right. Richard Roundtree, star of Shaft, dies at the age of 81. So that was today.
Oh,
that's right. Man,
he was so cool. Richard Roundtree.
Yep, commanded. This is from NPR.org. Commanded the screen from the very first minutes of its opening sequence of the film. This guy, he comes up out of the subway. He's walking down the streets of New York City, and he's owning it.
Dude, what a beautiful man. I became a blaxploitation, like I was obsessed with blaxploitation films. I was like, Black Power, I swear, when I was like 10 years old.
Well, that's exactly what the article talks about. It says Shaft was a new kind of figure in the film, unapologetically black with swagger. He clapped back at the white cops who said dumb things, and he busted mobsters. He gave black people that icon in the 70s. Shaft was a huge success, and like you said, he helped create an entire genre, blaxploitation.
You know that Shaft was supposed to be white. Do you know that?
Really?
It doesn't.
Shut your mouth.
Originally, let me black pill you. Let me after.
Oh, that's
pill
good.
You. So,
go ahead, black pill me. Yeah, there you go.
So
that's another
originally, there's a movie called Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which was rated X by an all-white jury. Melvin Van Peebles. This is one of the most important movies you can ever see. I can't imagine. I saw this when I was like 10 years old. Changed my life. I think, once I saw this movie, then I had to see Watermelon Man, had to see Shaft, had to see every one of these movies all the way into the full Superfly exploitation of African American populace, right? Because they figured out, wow, we can make a lot of money off of black people going to these theaters in the Midwest and all these places. So they started exploiting them. This guy made Watermelon Man. Have you seen Watermelon Man?
That
Watermelon
racist as fuck.
Watermelon Man is a movie about a man who is white and wakes up black, and it destroys his life. It destroys his family. His family leaves him. His neighborhood makes him move out. He starts getting threats. And
that's so fucked.
It's a crazy movie. It's an important movie. It's a masterpiece of a movie.
Don Cheadle?
No, this is before Don Cheadle.
Okay.
But it's George Cambridge, I think, Godfrey Cambridge.
So all black guys look like Don Cheadle. I see where you're going.
Oh man,
racist! God,
come on! Wow. Come
See what he says about the Chinese. Anyway, so Watermelon Man is a masterpiece. He makes some money, and they're like, "You should finish this movie." And they're like, He's like, "What do you mean?" Like, "Well, you have to do the last scene." Like, what last scene? Like, well, where he turns back white. He's like, "There's no what? No, that's not how that goes." And they're like, "What do you mean that's not how it goes? The whole America is waiting for this." And he's like, "What, you think like it's like a nightmare that he turned black?" And they're like, "Oh God, we can't do anything, can we?" So they released the movie the way he wanted it to, and they try to blacklist him. So he takes the only money he has, which was supposed to be his son's college education money, and Melvin makes Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. He goes to get a drug dealer in a hot tub in Santa Cruz, and surrounded in hippie girls, and he gets them all involved with the movie. He goes to Oakland. He gets a bunch of Black Panthers and the Green Berets and different kinds of people, and they all start working on this movie. And when the unions find out, the Teamsters get upset and the mobsters get upset. But what are they going to do? Because they're a bunch of black guys, so they decide to let it happen. And the movie gets made. They can't get it rated, so they rated X. But this is the 70s, and people are sick and tired of rating systems. And all of a sudden, normal Americans are going to see X-rated movies because X doesn't mean anything anymore. It's the 70s. So all of a sudden he's got this movie, and he's bled, sweat, toiled, put his son in it, and it's a crazy movie. It's about himself. It's about what black people go through in America and what they went through in the 50s and 60s. And it's insane. Like police are beating him, planting drugs on him. It's all there. It's the first time anyone's ever seen this kind of story. And in the audience, he's watching in the very back because he's nervous when he first makes a movie, anyone to see it. And he hears a old black woman as the Sweetback's on the ground being beaten by the police. And he's supposed to, at this point is when he's going to change, right? And that's when he goes out and he kills all the bad cops, right? But the old lady's like, stay down. Don't you understand what they're going to do? Stay down. And it made him cry because he's like, this is why I need to make this movie, because they think that they need to stay down and they don't. And there was only 3 people in the theater. It was like an old lady.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about cops, even white people need to stay down, Yeah. kind of might,
We're talking about martyrs tonight.
I mean, you don't want to get
Anyway.
murdered, Let's not forget this. They're basically the Gestapo. They will murder you.
All
So,
right, I will agree with you there. They will murder you.
you know,
If you don't want to be murdered, you should stay down.
life's worth living. Stay alive. people.
Kinda. I think life
Your
is
life
worth
is
fighting
worth
for.
something.
Lives worth
Oh,
dying for.
That's when you come back with an army. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So,
You
short-sighted.
can't.
martyr.
But then
Beating
again,
on
if
me.
everybody subjugates themselves to this police state and then stands down, there is no going to be an army. It's up to you
Okay.
ultimately.
Well,
So what
yeah,
happened with
let's
Sweet
see what
Sweetback?
happens.
Sweet
You're
Sweetback
not gonna
had
win. You're gonna just die.
Sweet Sweetback
Right.
And
had
it'll be in the news for like a night, and then everybody's gonna forget about you.
But the story matters, right? So Sweet Sweetback, he makes this movie. Melvin Van Peebles makes this movie. Almost no one's allowed to see it. It's rated X. And then the NAACP. Well, there's 3 people in the theater. This old lady, and then there's a black guy, and this old Jewish guy who runs the theater. The black guy he walks out, and he thinks, oh man, he didn't like the movie. He walks out. Guy comes back because he's from the NAACP with 100 people, and then they write it. Everyone has to see this movie, and it spreads like the Passion of the Christ. Everyone has to see this movie. They're taking schools to see it. Right, the school, like 8-year-old kids are going to see Sweet Sweetback's badass song, and this changes everything. And they say, "Oh my god, like we need to accept this. We need to look into this in Time Magazine, like all the blah blah blah." But really, it's like, "Oh my god, there's a market here, and we got to make this new movie with a black guy." And so Shaft becomes black, and I find that really interesting because it was literally just to make money, but it inspired so many people, and I think it Shaft is like a superhero. Like he's
So
like a righteous
initially,
character.
noble
It is.
cause is what
It
caused
is.
black exploitation films.
What did?
So like from everything you just said, this original movie, this is sweet whatever. Initially, this noble cause of trying to put black struggle into the limelight is what inspired black exploitation films.
Absolutely. Sweet Sweetback's badass
Fuck.
song is an X-rated independent film that nearly killed him, the man who made it, and used up all the money. He had his son's college fund, like everything. He put his son in, like everyone he knew, and it's just blood, sweat, and tears. It's crazy. It's a crazy.
Sounds like a good
Ah,
movie.
yeah.
Sounds
It
like
is.
Yeah,
it's
I'm gonna watch
actually the
this shit
first
tonight.
movie first thing you've recommended that I might actually watch.
All right, well, that's a rabbit hole in itself, going down the black exploitation rabbit hole, and then you get to Ralph Bakshi and Coonskin, and you're like, all right, I'm good.
But yeah, it's like everything else. It gets co-opted by the insiders,
Right.
to not be
Mass media.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of recommendations, real quick, gentlemen, have you ever heard of the novel Off Armageddon Reef by
No.
David Weber? So I want you to write that down. Take a note of it. Off Armageddon Reef by
There we go.
David Weber.
There we
No,
go.
don't spoil it. No, don't spoil it. Don't spoil anything. The reason why I say that because it starts off pretty quick and then it builds also pretty quick as well. Several novels in the series, but it talks about the development of technology.
Interesting. Off Armageddon Reef. Okay.
So it talks about the development of technology
How much
from a
was
certain
that book?
from a certain point of view.
Did I see the prices on that book right?
I guess it depends on which edition you get.
I don't know. It looked like an expensive ass book.
Nah.
Oh, $4. Okay, yeah, $4.
Well, it's doable. There's
146 for the box set. This is
There you go.
Okay, all right, that's what I saw. I was like, holy shit.
No, so that's it. But anyways, check that out. It brings me back to my final question. I'll get out of here. Let me see. Where do I have it here?
You should hang out, Sam. You should just. How come Sam never hangs out?
Right.
He
Well,
just comes and goes.
Well, there's a lot of stuff happening.
He's a Kundalini master as well, like he's got a practice he has to get back to.
He's a busy news
That's
guy.
right.
Yeah,
That's
have you ever
right.
seen a
That's right.
puppet astral project? It's wild.
That's right. Absolutely. We're all over the place.
Can we do that?
Felt
please?
all over the floor. Mass hysteria. Okay, listen. The church history, and Xirtus, this is for you. I want you to sit there and really tackle this one. Okay, church history, aligning it with the concept of Tartaria.
Oh, yeah.
Our misrepresented date or time or whenever the hell we are, possible resets within the last 200 years, and the repurposing of what we call churches today and the destruction of the bells.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I'll leave you with that. Broadcasting live from the underground, deep from an underground military bunker or spaceship high above the plane of Earth. Follow me at Sam Newsman. I have a radio show every Saturday morning. From the most trusted puppet in media, reporting since Roswell, I'm Sam Newsman. And happy hump day.
Happy hump day.
Take care, Sam.
Oh, Sam's a beautiful man. I love Sam.
Right.
Sam's a great puppet.
Yeah, but he's too good to hang. He's too good to hang.
He's got, puppets. Oh, wait, but you know what? We got Bernie. What's up, Bernie? You made it.
What's good, Bernie?
Welcome,
Howdy, Bernie.
welcome.
I was like, what happened? I was like, because we're supposed to do a show. We're gonna do real science, I think, in 2 days also, and we're gonna be trying to do some more stuff. But we just brought up, Sam just brought up bells and chronology, and he was talking about the 200-year phantom time hypothesis. He's like, oh yeah, there's probably about 200 years that are missing. It went from 11 days to 200 years, but isn't it more like 1,000, right? It's like 600 to 1,000 years are just shuffled.
The
There's
first
just
millennium.
so much missing and so much that's been tampered with. It's hard to tell, right? There's like 11 years here, 2,000 there, reset here, Young Dryas event there.
Right.
Missing Tartaria, missing Atlantis, missing Lemuria. Yeah, there's the Anunnaki. There's so much that
I feel like the easiest way is you use the Anatoly Fomenko chronology because he's got event by event. So you can be like, okay, well, this is 12 events, and here are another 12 events that have the same, like this happened January 11th and it ended March 15th. And then this event happened April 15th and ended July 6th. And like they're all the same dates. 12 events in a row, either 12 kings' birthdays and death days, or 12 battles that happened like 4 years and 6 days apart, or something like that. And so once you start seeing that there are just repeats of stories where they've said, okay, well, this happened in the 600s, but then they have the same story happen in the 1600s, and now it's happened to the Catholic Church instead of to the Gnostic, Bogomils, or it's happened to the Muslims instead of to the Jews, or it's happened. So it's like the same story, though. We've got the same story repeating over and over again.
and same with the Zoroastrians, with a lot of Greek mythology, with the Vedic, even with Norse mythology. They all seem to have these underlying repeating base traditions and repeating storylines. It's quite fascinating the more you look into it.
We could go back to the turkey thing because that's interesting. But I also wanted to add.
yeah, because King Trick was confused whether or not there was two Jerusalems.
Well, I have to ask. When Sam was here, did you mute my mic?
Yeah, because you were bubbling away. You're like making Fruit Loops over there, bro. I remember that Sesame Street in the background.
I had to outdo your sound effects, bro.
Today's show is brought to you by the letters and numbers 420. Yeah.
Yeah, I was blowing bubbles in my coffee.
Yeah, that's cool.
How else can you cool it down and mix the cream and sugar at the same time? It makes sense. I do it.
Man, yeah. I'm the only person missing out right now because today of all days I'm fucking dry, so I'm currently just vaping nicotine.
Shame on it's raining here.
Well, luckily you guys aren't in Canada where I am, where it's minus 11 degrees Celsius, snowing, and winter has arrived.
That's
hell yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I was wondering what you went up to. Winter is fun. I mean, okay, so yeah, all right. Are we gonna? Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go back to Turkey or first, Bernie? Do you want to say a little bit because you've been doing a lot this week and you've been working on stuff? Do you want to talk about the stuff you've been working on?
Okay, well, yeah, we've had a lot on. I've had the pleasure of Dr. Joseph P. Farrell, all of his research.
I heard that went funny. I've heard that he loved you, but he was like thinking it was Bosley or something. He's like, oh, well but so at least it's Bernie's cool,
He thought he was like, because we were co-streaming, so then he thought he was like going on to Walter's channel and it was Walter's show, so he felt more like he had to like defend himself compared to like some young punk that I am coming up to this doctor.
And he's like, oh, this guy's cool. He's like open-minded. Yeah, he was surprised how open-minded you were. Yeah.
It was like an excellent free university lecture, really. Then we did with Dr. Sam Ismanovich last week together. That was excellent, and just all this alternative history information coming out. And once I'm done here with you, I'm going to be doing another stream with Hans Dietrich and his Corpus Jones. And you're more than welcome to join in on that if you'd like.
You know what? I'd probably be into that. And we're gonna set something up with Mark and Julia and you to do. I want to do like a woo kind of esoteric astrology thing. It's gonna be weird. It's gonna be great. We're gonna see if we can do Ping's whole astrology without ever telling anyone for Julia his birthday.
Is that what we're gonna do? I was wondering when I was gonna find out my star chart. Jesus, dude. So we're gonna do a whole episode around my star chart.
Yeah, but we'll do it in a way
that
where no
actually
one
sounds fun.
That might be nice.
You can give away the results of my star chart without giving my personal information away, right?
Only the most esoteric witches in our group, which is most of them, will know.
Oh, so if you're like an expert on star charts, then you can like reverse engineer it and figure out all that information.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, be careful. I'm putting my safety in your hands.
Sorry, Gunwood, what did you say?
Really?
Yeah.
Look at my face.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. Cause like I've always grew up skeptical about astrology or astrotheology. I think it's like some like white women crystal shit, right? and then further investigation into it, I'm seeing like more and more legitimacy. So I'm also pretty curious and open-minded, but in terms of that aspect.
What I find creepy is when you read like your sign. Like I'm an Aquarius. If you read. It's like, damn.
He's an Aquarius.
That's pretty well. I mean, that just means I was born in January. I mean, there's still 30 other days.
Oh, it's all docs now. No, right.
No, but when you read like when they write a description of like what an Aquarius is like, but I'm also skeptical. Like, are they just throwing a lot out there and obviously something's gonna stick? Yeah.
Yeah, but you're like a late or early. Are you more like a Capricorn? Or like early January?
Oh, so now you're really trying to like, I mean, Aquarius starts January 20th, so that should answer your question.
My issue is my skepticism comes from the calendar stuff, right? The amount of like, especially if you consider the flamenco timeline, the Islamic calendar, whatever, like the amount of timeline psyops that we've been through. How can we get an accurate reading at all?
Well, so this is what I'm going to give from my alchemical experience. And Gunwoo, like you, when I was younger, I was extremely skeptical of astrology. I was like, what is this woo?
But I too dated a bunch of girls.
From physics point of view, the largest forces that are acting upon the bodies of mass within our physical reality are the planets and the stars, the gravity and their ELM fields on each other. So their placements of where they are and, just the time, that's the largest possible gravitational and electromagnetic force movements.
Right.
So, what's to say? Who knows what's actually up there?
It'd be more ridiculous,
but there's something to it.
I'm sorry. It would be more ridiculous to say that there was no effect of mass than to say that we completely understand that effect, right? Like that's actually to believe there was no effect is weirder than to say that astrology exists, I think is the point. But also let's look at genetics. Okay. So you got a bunch of people that voodoo economics, like they believe in something, and this is superstitions for thousands of years. You'll have people that believe if you're born in January, you should marry someone in March. There's like spinsters, and you got people not even making their own choices. You got parents assigning from birth. Oh, this kid was born a Pisces. He should marry a Virgo or whatever the heck they decide. So eventually you've got epigenetic responses to being born at certain times of year, and even to socially, like the way you're treated because they expect of you a certain way. All the way into the 19th century, 20th century, we have astrology. You have one astrologer for New York City, and a million people are all basing their day and what they're doing on what they're told to by a single person. Like, so eventually it doesn't matter what's real because now this, even if the star, I was going to say real quickly, even if the stars all move, right, and they're no longer in the place they were, because genetically we've evolved to this point where we are Aquarius in January, right? Or February. It has nothing to do. It could literally just be a response of epigenetics also. Sorry, go ahead, Bernie.
The mass effects of it, right? That you're programming so many people to think a certain way each time that it's just has that effect. The term's slipping my mind, but another point of it with the alchemical aspect of astrology and how the alchemists put silver to the moon, and then my experiments with making monoatomic silver, and that the rate of monoatomic silver being produced is actually correlates to the cycle of the moon. On an empty moon, barely any is made. On a full moon, a bunch is made. When I was doing it during super moons, it would completely fill the container. I did one one experiment on the Alien Scientist channel where I plugged it in on a full moon right before the eclipse happened, before a lunar eclipse, and it was producing a whole bunch. And then as the eclipse blocked out the moon, it literally stopped making the monoatomics on the live experiment until the eclipse had passed, and then it started making it again. And then from the moon being associated with silver, the way the alchemists labeled that, I decided to try gold, because they labeled gold with the sun. And sure enough, now it seems that it makes the monoatomic gold during the day while the sun is out. It makes it normally, and then as soon as the sun sets, it starts making black monoatomic stuff instead of the pure white stuff. So once again, that's two heavenly bodies that the alchemists tied these metal elements to, that I've directly correlated through experiments to their actual cycles above. And that's what really has me fascinated in astrology, of the powers that could come from it. Not to mention, as Pink Trip was saying, when you pick up an astrology book and you read it, you're like, how the hell was this written 20 years before I was born? And it's describing my life in 2023 perfectly, right? Like, there's certain ones that...
for me, it's more about the personality stuff. Because I read mine, it's like, damn, that's pretty accurate to my person. And then I read my dad's, and I was like, Jesus Christ, that's like 100% accurate to my dad. So that's when it's like... I mean, maybe it's just, like I said, because they put so much in there, and some things you're like, well, that's not me. But then like 80%, you're like, oh yeah, that's me.
I had a huge problem with astrology growing up because I'm born 2 minutes into the next sign. So I'm like right on the cusp, and I'm a cesarean. So I probably should have been born earlier or later, but like I'm born on the cusp, And so I'm born so on the cusp that it's like sometimes I'm more Aquarius and sometimes I'm more Pisces, but I'm on the Pisces side.
Well, I got a good question. Wouldn't it be more like, if we're talking about like the gravitational pull of the planets and yada yada yada, wouldn't it have more effect on your egg when you're like than it would like when you're already born, like when you're actually like forming the brain?
Cycles tied to the moon, right? So that's an aspect.
But some people, sun
like
aspect,
when the egg is forming and making the brain, like you would think the gravitational effect would be more important.
But then you can figure that out.
You're probably right on that. Like I can almost guarantee, and that's why there's all these ancient like occultic practices of when they would have their sexual rituals and try to impregnate and the rest of it. And there probably is some actual science to it.
But there is like the way they look at astrology, it's like when you're born, like the light shines upon you kind of a thing. So it's like, this is a new day, and before that you're processing still. So it's like, you're not fully yourself yet. Now I know that's a slippery slope to pro-choice or something. I'm not trying to go there, but like you are more yourself after birth. I'm pretty sure there's in some ways that's
well,
true.
if it's gravity that's affecting things, I think maybe gravity is going to affect how your brain's put together. Like the actual physical creation of the brain. Yeah, because
you know how when babies are born, you have to constantly flip them so their brains won't, like their heads won't turn into a cone.
Yeah, and also or Paris Hilton's baby. God, you guys think Paris Hilton's baby is an alien, or is that too much? I don't know.
No, I think I've seen a lot of babies with big heads that they'll grow. He'll grow into
he's
that
the Yakubian line.
That's what I looked like when I was a baby. I look like that.
You still look like that, Andreas.
I do have a big bowling ball head.
How the fuck does that come out, bro?
It's a star child, bro. Well, again, I'm hoping that's a cesarean like me, because like, dang.
Yeah,
but like,
how does that come out of a vagina, man?
Well, how old is he? Because it could have been a lot smaller at birth.
That head was big, but the thing is also the word skull. The word skull in the Hebrew is rosh, right? And rosh and rose because of the blossoming. Because when the skull comes out,
I couldn't imagine pushing that out of my vagina.
Well, right. Because the thing is that the skull is actually pressed.
C-section choice right here.
As the son of a gynecologist, I'm just gonna do it real quick. So the skull is like compressed in like this, and when it comes out, the skull actually does this popping thing. Yeah. So like at first it's not like the head's formed, and actually coming out, it forms into a perfect head.
Andreas is like, shut up! I'm an expert on this. Everybody,
sad.
Just shut up and listen to me. I know all about
When I was like 8 years old, I walked into the Dominican hospital looking for my mom. Into my mom shoulder deep in the process of trying to get a baby out that was coming out reversed. So the leg was coming out, and it was like pooping in the process of being birthed. It was a lot. It was a lot, and the lady was screaming.
Yeah.
So I have a context on childbirth, I think, slightly. So my own
sounds like it to me.
But yeah, the alien babies, though. I think this is I know this is weird, but come on. If you're Paris Hilton and you can have a star child, you're gonna. Come on.
Because I had a nephew who had a head just like this. And
was he smart?
He grew into it.
Was he a smart kid?
Not necessarily. He didn't know not to fuck around with dogs, and my dog bit him.
Ooh, yeah, I forgot.
That was his. I blame that on his mom, though.
I was also born with a big ass head. At the age of 3, I fell down the flight of stairs because
your head was too big.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty rough.
And you grew into it. Your head's not near as big as Andreas.
Pretty much.
This is the way I lean. Come down. All right. What do you guys want to do? Turkey still? Because I still.
I wanted to mention in the light of this whole Israel whatever conflict that's been going on. So the legitimacy of the legitimacy of the modern day Levant is heavily contested. If you know about the proposals for a Jewish state and the whole UN, whatever led up to the UN proposition in 1947, I believe they had upwards to 50 different proposals to establish Israel. One of them being as ridiculous as Australia, the Kimberley plan that I put up in the private chat. So
right.
So yeah, If we
go
by
Jewish state as well, they originally wanted Uganda, I believe. As,
yeah.
Well, the Russian Jewish Oblast was that the Russian.
So we know for a fact the modern day Israel is nowhere near where current Israel.
The Russians tried to build a Soviet Israel, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. This is the flag of the Jewish Autonomous Oblast, by the way. Did you know that the rainbow flag didn't used to be? Yeah, this is the flag of the Jewish Autonomous Oblast. This is the Israeli flag, the Soviet Israeli flag.
Dude, how much better would the world be if they built Israel in like the middle of the Siberian forest? Like nobody would be fighting them. Nobody would be fighting them for that land. They'd be like, no, you have it. No, don't worry.
They literally did. Yeah.
Oh, right next to China and Mongolia too.
Yeah. Yeah, so like where the Tartar Chinese,
the Manchuria, Vladivostok area.
Yeah, it's so like a place where they're genetically are actually Ashkenazis from. It's interesting, But sorry, you were pulling up the Kimberley plan. I'll go to the Kimberley plan.
I was pretty much explaining to Picture that there wasn't really multiple Jerusalems throughout history. There was just one, right? But it's just that due to the proposals by the UN, there was upwards of 50 different countries that were up for
ideal.
Yeah, right. And it's even being in Japan at one point.
We're talking about after World War II.
Right. Yeah.
They were like, what can we do in Japan? Let the Jews have it. Yeah.
No, but the city of Jerusalem was called, where the Temple Mount is and all that. It's been called Jerusalem for a long ass time.
Well, like when did it was called Palestine. Isis Ra Elohim, which is
but it was still the city of Jerusalem in Palestine.
No, it was called Jerusalem after 47. Originally, it was called Quds.
Yeah. And
you're blowing my mind.
There's also there is a Tartarian theory that Moscow was the old Jerusalem as well, out of Russia. Quite the interesting.
Yeah, but isn't Bethlehem? Bethlehem still exists, right? They just
make
up Bethlehem too.
Yeah, it's Beilin. Is actually
the Tartaria theory, right? Is that the entirety of Tartaria was the millennial kingdom, right? So Moscow would be New Jerusalem under that technicality. Not to mention that after the Second Roman Empire fell, Russia was established as a third Rome.
Yeah. The thing we have to remember is we're talking about a group of people that move every time their temple burns down, right? Like the 70 AD, they go to every other country. It's a normal thing to go as a nomadic people that establish the state where they're at, and their religion's all about having a tabernacle. It's a tent house, not a White House,
And, we mentioned this also in the last stream. The Gathars, the Eastern European strongholds that pretty much made up the quote unquote tabernacles throughout Tartaria. Not to mention, a lot of people don't make this connection at all. The connection between Caesar and Tsar, right? It's
right.
Caesar, right? Yeah. TS is S, and then R, then Caesar.
And Kaiser. Yeah. So so if you look at Europe in the 11th century during the Crusades, like all of the effort that's to kill everyone and erase all the books, instead of looking at the Dark Ages as like, oh, well, they were just a bunch of ignorant people who had no books. Like, well, why were they ignorant, or why didn't they have books? Because they were forced to learn a new language.
Right.
They're forced to get rid of everything they had. So it's like we're thinking of a dark age because we can't imagine what that darkness was filled with, which was light. You know, there's like constantly education and intellectual study.
And, well, just genocide and resets by the victor. History is written by the victor, and everyone who's lost all the battles, all that history has been wiped out. And a prime example is what the Jesuit order and the conquistadors did to the Mayan, Olmec, Aztec, and do they call them the Inca, claiming that they didn't even have a written language or didn't have documented texts or anything of the sort, and yet taught that in universities up until the 80s or early 90s. And then it came out that no, they actually had just a ridiculous vast wealth of knowledge of these beads, like reed style book accounting keeping and all this stuff, and that it was all burnt, trashed, and destroyed when they were conquered by the conquistadors.
Let's think about the, in terms of the hidden Christians and the conquistadors on that level. Mark, what does this symbol remind you of? When you see this symbol, what would you think this symbol meant?
Kind of looks like a, I mean, I could see the Christianity resemblance, but it kind of looks like a dude like kind of doing this, but with his middle finger up too, which
that's super based. I'm glad you went there, but the Christianity resemblance is a pretty good one. The point is, it looks kind of like a cross on a hill, 3 crosses, maybe.
By the way, you guys know I'm not a Tartaria guy, so I'm saying like something.
That's all better.
Like
that's all.
That's why he likes me, because I don't believe half of the shit he talks about. So I'm the skeptic.
You have to be skeptic. Exactly, and I was heavy into the Tartaria. Now
this is a symbol for Muhammad.
It's like just Muhammad. Extremist, and when I refer to Tartaria, the area I'm referring to specifically is in the Siberia, East Asia, Northeast Asia area specifically, and that's it. That's all.
I do like the revision history. Look at the symbol for Muhammad. You'd think that this would be a symbol for Christianity. You've got a lot of these symbols that are kind of hidden in Christianity. Here's like, we're talking about Jesus being crucified in Jerusalem. There's a few other pictures. Let me see if I can find here's, these are the Alpha and Omega symbol for, Allah. Where's the one though that's like in Jerusalem, the painting of him?
Oh yeah. That's actually like that shows that it's in Turkey.
Yeah. So here, so all the original pictures, or all the original pictures of Christ, like all the paintings we have, like they show him in Turkey. You often see the Beset River? No, the Turkish canal there. Turkish.
What I just pulled up, it said the Ottoman Empire took over Jerusalem in 1516. So there was a period of time where Turkey ruled Jerusalem.
Yes, and
I mean, according to Google.
Yeah, and there's a time.
You didn't miss the super chat, did you?
Oh, there's a super chat.
Yeah, from Stephen Cowan.
Oh, we love you, Stephen.
Good thing I watched the chat. Jesus.
Paying attention. Stephen Cowan. Tsar's law was to cut live babies from dead mothers. Yeah, that's true. But also, like Solomon's law was like to cut babies in half. So, kind of a similar thing in its own way, I think. Yeah, I mean, so the idea of Jesus being crucified in a metropolitan is different. The idea of Jesus having access to the world, I mean, we have to start to figure out what is true. Like the idea of Christ being a caveman surrounded by Flintstones is not true. And
are we ever going to figure out what's true, though? Is it even possible?
There's a lot. It's like, a lot of people have historicity of Yeshua, and it vibes not well with Christians. So they're like, oh, well, we'll just continue to believe what we believe. But the idea that Jesus was brought out of Jerusalem to whatever that is, whether it's Turkey or you're talking about the desert of Canaan, to Alexandria in Egypt, right? He's raised regardless, not in Turkey or in Israel or whatever, Palestine. He's raised in Egypt, in Alexandria, at the turning points of the Silk Road. He's constantly dealing with tradespeople because of his father. He's dealing with people that are merchants that are buying stuff in Alexandria and Egypt because his dad's making. So in other words, he's meeting, and he's always at the temple. He's seeing rabbis, he's seeing gurus, he's seeing people that are coming through from all different walks of life. His background's far more interesting and eclectic. And the idea of just like, oh, well, it's not in the Bible, like we erased 13 years to 30 years. That's not okay. Like, you don't just go from before his bar mitzvah to he's in the desert fighting the devil like Vishnu. Like, you can't just like skip all that stuff without being, there's more to it. And the more we look into it, the more you see why it's hidden, is because the context reveals so much about what you're supposed to do with your life. You're supposed to fight against injustice. Life is worth dying for. This is a problem that we've developed since September 11th. People are like, oh, well, security is worth sacrificing freedom for. No, life is worth sacrificing for freedom. I mean, these are the kinds of issues that I think most people are like, they're like uncomfortable to even acknowledge anymore. But it used to be just guttural logic to know. I mean, I think that's what we're missing by trying to bastardize and transmute the true history into something that's like, okay, well, you're the first one to ever think of these thoughts, so don't worry, you don't have to study. Buy this car now. That's how it feels all the time to me. And so we need to be reflective.
History is kind of hard though, dude, because it's, the further back you go, there's so much history that we're never going to actually know what really happened, because we have just a base of like knowledge that's been passed down, and who knows how accurate that knowledge even is in the first place. And you're only ever going to get a small piece of the story. So all you can really do is try to extrapolate, which it's just a guessing game. So I don't know. We're never really going to know.
Yeah, it's a guessing game until you have like out of place cultures like Korea, for example, corroborating all these like weird stories that should have no connection to
like, anomalous corroboration helps, I think. And
yeah,
also,
but still, how much of the whole picture are you getting? You're still getting a small piece of the pie.
If you're good at, like, if you lived a couple decades on this earth and you've watched the news and you know how like CNN does a fake news story, then you should be able to see how it was done in the past and see how fake news is fake history. I think a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, it's like, oh yeah, I can see how this happened.
Our elites are lazy as fuck. They just keep repeating the same playbooks that have worked in the past without changing anything. But yet, like the reason why they don't change anything is because they know it's gonna fucking work. It's time and again it does. And also like. Yeah. If you scroll down to the Ashkenaz, so I want to talk about like to corroborate Ewing's take that Jesus was in Europe and stuff like that. The specifically this link about the Ashkenaz. If you scroll down to the part where it says Ashkenazi Jews, it mentions how Bohemia.
Really quickly, I want to show, like, here's the Black Sea, here's Crimea, here's Ukraine, here's Turkey, here's Egypt. Okay,
and there where it says Ashkenaz is where the border.
If you're on a boat, it's not hard to see how you do this, how you get to Moscow. Like,
no, look where Constantinople is, or modern day Istanbul, and this is Ashkenaz right underneath Phrygians. This is what I've been talking about this entire time, how like the original Romans were Phrygians and whatnot, and the original Israelites being Scythians as well. Phrygians being of the Scythian culture, stuff like that. It all ties into it. It is public information too. But the reason why we're psyops is because a lot of these churches are adamant repeating the same lie and over again. But if you scroll down to the part of Ashkenazi Jews, I've personally found out by reading through very niche Jewish sources talking about prior to the 16th century, talking about how the Canaan, the land of Canaan, was originally in Bohemia, which is modern day Czechoslovakia, and the Spain being Sephardi. We know that part, the Sephardi Jews migration and stuff like that. But the part that struck me out was Bohemia being identified as the land of Canaan. We always assumed that it was in the Levant somewhere, being a desert, but yeah, it's literally in Europe. And this is public information.
Bohemian Canaan. I'm not what? He's talking about Bohemian Canaan.
This is your show. You can't just walk away, disappear, dude.
Oh, it's my new favorite thing.
And also, I feel like Andreas would know more about this because he's Croatian. I mean, it's in the Balkan area.
Not telling.
I haven't found anything Andreas doesn't know a lot about.
No, I mean, it's interesting though, the idea of Canaan, because we have this idea that Israel, and again, Israel, Isis, Ra, Elohim, right? You have this. It's the same as Budapest. You got a community that comes together, and from the tellings of our history, like you said, you've got like, well, our group, our priesthood was closer to God, and their priesthood wasn't. And so we had to, walk around them and blow them up. God did it, actually. And then we just, God said we had to like take their women. It's weird. At Jericho, or it was God, but you go back a little further and you read like Josephus and you see like, okay, well, these are volcano chaos earthquake worshipers that are inside of a group of lots of people. There's Semitic people, there's Aramaics, there's Arabs, there's Ishmaelites, right? Because you go to Abraham and you've got Father Abraham had many sons. I don't know if you heard that one. So there's a bunch of Semitic people. Like this is even to the point today where they're like, oh, you're being anti-Semitic. It's like, yeah, you are, because you forget that Palestinians speak a Semitic language. Like they're all Semitic people.
Right.
It's an important thing. So Isis Ra Elohim is like Budapest. It's like you took Buddha and Pest and it became Budapest. The difference is in the process of merger, it's kind of like marriage, two become one. Usually the man is lost in the process, right? So with Isis Ra Elohim, the personality of the wife of God, Yahweh had a wife, Ashtoreth, I think. She's removed because they think that's not okay. And in the post-Abraham period, Yahweh is not even allowed to have form, right? Because because Abraham smashed idols, according to the Midrash. So we get to a point where they don't know, and this is in order to destroy all the iconography and history of all the Semitic groups that are living in this area, right? And to force them to consolidate under this priesthood that worships chaos, worships whenever an earthquake destroys a people, because that means they can go in and take their stuff, right? That's a very specific small group within the larger picture, but they ended up in power, right? And that's
right, which ties into the whole idea that we're a cargo civilization.
Yeah. I mean, even the idea of Akhenaten or Moses leaving Egypt, they're in the desert for 40 years so that they're Stockholm syndrome. They forget who they are. And then the people who remember die. So the next generation, they can tell them, this is what it was like before. Or
that's
not.
That's the thing. That's like you're under the impression that these Israelites wandered in the same desert for 40 years in circles, but we forget these are nomadic people that are very familiar with geography. So how can they be lost in circles for 40 years? So which is how I draw the connection of people when the Israelites came out of Egypt, they crossed the entire Asian desert, the steppe linking into China, then eventually
which you could do because it's 6 days to walk to Egypt. So 40 years you could get to Russia. Yeah.
Right, exactly, and then eventually they're going to go into Alaska, then become Native Americans, which is where the whole Tartars as Israelites theories come from, back from the 17th, 13th century, which was huge. Like this was Tartars as Israelites. That Judeo-centric theory was it was around since the 13th, 14th century. From what I've read, it could even go further. But yeah, these are the Kai Feng Jews. But like people completely neglect this, which is how we have this idea that the Jewish people were the original Israelites rather than the Indo-Europeans being the original Israelites. This is where the whole psyop comes from after post 1947. Not to mention the whole I was going to mention this earlier with the whole ties with the Nestorian Christianity and the Kakure Christians in Japan. A lot of the motifs that the Kakure Christians do. Of tying, a Christian symbol, Abrahamic symbolism with Buddhist symbolism, is very similar to what the Greco-Buddhists did. So there's that, that cultural land bridge that tying it from Greece to Asia to Central, Asia to Japan eventually. So yeah, and then we have all this corroborating anomalous information, which is how we can form a bigger picture.
Yeah, I think. Am I muted? No, good. I was thinking about the Druze again because this idea of like you're talking about genetic line, Christ having family, that there's people that are just like he's descended from a line, so that would mean that there's others in this line, even if he doesn't have kids. But there's this idea there, and a lot of them focus on that. It's like midichlorians or something. They're like you got to have the chosen one gene or something like that. But it's pretty clear you've got people from all over different ethnicities that have the gene, the God gene, and whatever that means, because you've got Ethiopians, you've got Quechua, you've got people all over the world. So something has happened where it's everywhere. And that can be accounted for, like with gurus and royals, because royals with other royals and then peasants with other peasants.
Yeah, that's where Salic law comes from. This idea that these kings that we had back in the medieval ages came from this divine line personally blessed by God, which is how, they became kings to begin with.
This is leaving me more interested in Turan and Iranian Persian history, Sassanid history, because the idea of like Sanskrit and Vishnu and all the Hindu stuff coming out of Persia I mean, if everything comes out of Persia, if Islam comes out of Persia, Hinduism comes out of Persia, Manichaeism, Buddhism, and really, in a sense, because of that Christianity,
it's the 12 tribes, Lord, bro. It's yeah, and also
King Trip's like, this did not make me start thinking about Turanian Empire in Persia.
I mean, I don't know what the fuck y'all are talking about. I'm just, the Terragonic Combidosis regime of what the fuck are we talking about?
All right,
I don't know what the fuck. Y'all act like we understand this shit you're saying. Like, I don't know, what is that? You have to define what the hell that is. You can't just give me this big word. The Terragonic regime is like, what? What's the Terragonic regime?
Here's Iran.
Whatever word you said, I couldn't even process it.
Here's Iran.
So foreign
right
to
here.
me.
Here's Iran, right? Okay, Persia. Here's Turan. Okay, Turan is bigger. At one point, even included parts of Persia, and arguably was more important than a state because it was a culture. So the Turanian culture, I mean, is really
Turanian. Is that the word? Okay, that's the Turanian.
Yeah,
what the fuck is a Turanian?
Also, not to mention that the location of Turan is also where Scythia was, where Tartaria was, where Khazaria was. The same region, the Pannonian Basin, man. That is where the whole 12 tribe stuff comes from, and which ties into the whole Phrygian.
So Turan is Iran, which is Tartaria, which is
modern day. It's where modern day Iran is at.
Yeah,
it's where modern day Iran is, but it's also where a lot of countries are, because it would have included Tajikstan and Tajikistan, and what's the one with the dictator that's like North Korea for Persian people?
Kyrgyzstan.
Turkmenistan, maybe Turkmenistan.
Arab North Korea.
There's Kyrgyzstan. There's multiple because they're all sponsored by Russia right now. So there's Kyrgyzstan, there's Tajikistan, there's
Tajikistan, right?
Yeah.
Tajikistan,
yeah. Tajikistan, Turkestan.
But yeah, that entire area all has dictators, bro.
All dictators, yeah.
Yeah, but Emomali Rahmon, yeah, dude, no, you got to look into
Kazakhstan. Oh yeah, dude, that dude for sure.
Tajikistan is wild. Tajikistan is a wild, weird place with like all.
Look at that guy's eyebrows. You got
gold. He looks
as communist as they come.
They have 24-karat gold statues of the guy. He made his own book. He's doing things. You know what I mean? Like, it's smart. Like, he's like a green little. Bible
they have to psyop that area so hard to cover up for Scythia, bro. Like, I mean, it's inevitable.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like, it's interesting. Like, so they banned drugs in a lot of those regions. So like they had lots of money. They sold a lot of drugs for the CIA and everything like that. And then eventually they took all this money from oil and everything else, and they just built freaking cities that look like Milan. They're these like Tuscan mansions and just cities of marble, you know, that they built in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's like, no, I mean, well, that's the question, right? Because like, what's the deal? Why do they have all of this Milanian marble, you know?
Same thing with China, bro. All those ghost cities that look like Europe, bro, that nobody fucking lives in. It's like, why is that there? Same thing with the pyramids in Manchuria and all.
There's a focus for if everything collapses. I think it's that when everything collapses,
to keep their GOP growing, their GDP growing.
I think that the whole world's going to collapse, and those places are the next new world order. You know, they're ready to go.
Well, they're falling apart. They're made. They're not made to last. They're made to just fall apart.
Yeah, some of the Chinese ones are, but the Tajikistani like cities are beautiful, and the things they're doing in Egypt and the plans.
I didn't even know Chickajani existed.
Fair answer.
So you just fucking know.
Crypto, you got anything you wanted to share before I start to show them where to meet yourself?
No, I'm good. Thanks for having me on, and we'll have to do another one that's more full on the alchemy and on astrology and all of it, and
we're
real
gonna set
science. Definitely, and I'm just setting up the Woo Woo Wednesday Stone.
If I get my credit card information stolen, I'm blaming you, Andreas.
Yeah, it's my fault. You put out your father's name. It's not my fault. Make sure you guys watch Pink Trip all week to make sure he's up to no good. He's been making, this is a pretty funny one, the Matthew McConaughey with Lex Friedman meltdown. I really like this one.
How does Lex Friedman get in contact with all these celebrities, bro? I can't even like send an email to like somebody.
His show gets a lot of views, dude.
He's friends.
It's
all about who you know.
Networking, the 7 point
if Andreas started getting millions of views every episode, he could get like anybody he wanted.
It's true.
Or at least huge guests.
I just gotta get blessed by somebody in an apron, I guess. So
hey, Sunday night, watch me live. If you like this, I mean, I don't talk about this kind of crazy shit, but it's funny. Come check me out Sunday night.
He's got way more reasonable guests.
And you're nice lady. Correct on the right side of things, right? It's the right side.
He's on the correct side of things.
I'm right about everything.
Yeah. Oh, this is good. This is good. I like what you're doing here. I mean, no one took acid during this entire production.
You don't know that.
I could tell, but yeah. So maybe also go to Pink Trip 2. Where is that? Where do I find Pink Trip 2? Did you hide it?
You gotta go to channels.
There's a
I
second
did.
one.
I went to channels. Pink Trip. Oh, there it is. Pink Trip 2 right here, which is where you can find some of his more like cough medicine-y productions. He's adorable. Benadryl Benny right here. Yeah, no, I love this stuff. Actually, this is really.
This is all my on acid content. So there you go.
Not enough people watch the good stuff. I gotta say, this is the stuff that they should be watching, and it's a quality filter. You know, if you're not ready to receive the Holy Spirit, you can't even get Pink Trip 2. So
yeah, people don't watch anything the algorithm doesn't put in front of them these days.
Right.
You know?
I mean, look at that mullet and tell me you don't want to watch more. This is beautiful.
Yeah, my boy Davey.
Davey's great. Crypto Alchemist Bernie. He's got a show coming up in a minute. You were watching right now the Woo, but he's about to do the Woo Woo Wednesday, which is going to be sciencey and interesting, and we're going to go jump on that.
And alternative history and alchemy and all sorts of wildness.
Bro is actually making monatomic gold and setting homunculi free, so it's sweet, it's super good. And we did, I would recommend checking out the Sam Osmanovich video and the Joseph P. Farrell, which just turned out super swell. I thought that was just great. Wonderful episode. Really well done. And Gunwoo is anonymous. You don't get to find out more. But if you wanted to, you could go to the Tartary Nova Discord because he does hang out in there sometimes. So.
Is your Twitter account it's not listed Gunwoo, right?
Oh no, so like I
is it like symbols and shit?
That Twitter account that I made was initially like an art ho fucking account.
Well, no, because I'm trying to figure out what to follow. I was like, is that Gunwoo? I don't know. It doesn't say Gunwoo. I don't want to just follow some random person.
It is Gunwoo.
Yeah.
My Twitter account was
follow me and I'll follow you back, dude.
Yeah, gotcha. I don't really use Twitter though. It's always literally an art ho account that I just like.
I use
X
because
to follow.
Elon messes it up.
Oh, I shouldn't even look at your account. That's right. You got art.
Christ.
When you said art ho, that's what you meant. I thought you meant you were a ho making art. See, here's my. I was like, I could get along with that.
No, I felt like I used to be like a hipster.
Mark's a ho making art. I mean.
So I would follow a lot of design, architecture, or like photographer stuff.
Is that what you call those girls? You're sick. You are sick, man. Okay, I love you all very much. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Peace.
Yeah,
Make sure you watch Bernie's show tonight.
Much love.